Now, it's just 10 days to the Glasgow North East by-election, and there are some signs the campaign is beginning to warm up. Tonight, it's the turn of the SNP's candidate, David Kerr, who's trying to be just the second non-Labour MP for this part of the world since the ILP won it in 1922. Well, that was the same year the Communists won Motherwell. David Kerr's under no illusions about the challenges Glasgow North East faces. Compared with the rest of Scotland, he acknowledges smoking rates, cancer deaths, unemployment, crime and drug and alcohol abuse are higher. And more than half of the area's pupils leave school without a single qualification.
Does Cumbernauld need a bit of love?
He's a former BBC journalist. Indeed, he once edited this programme, more recently appearing regularly on Reporting Scotland.
Cumbernauld! And yes, that was me in that advert.
Today, there were claims in the Daily Record that he's been misleading voters as to where exactly he was born. Regardless of where he was born, Mr Kerr says he'll live in the constituency if elected. He also says that the poverty afflicting the constituency is a damning indictment of 74 years of voting Labour. His challenge now to persuade voters to back him instead. Well, I'm joined live now by the SNP candidate David Kerr. Over the weekend, your party saying that you'd give Labour the fright of their lives in this election contest. What does that mean?
I think it means that the Labour Party have ruled the roost in Glasgow North East since 1935. I think you're leading to 1922, but it's 1935. But that's 74 years that they've been in power in Glasgow North East. I think since then they've become complacent. I think quite often, excuse the French, but they've dumped on the communities in Glasgow North East, whether it be a lack of new housing, closing schools, not bringing jobs to the area. They've failed the communities of Glasgow North East.
Yeah, what do you mean by a fright? I mean, it sounds like it's something less than the earthquake of victory in Glasgow East.
Well, we're aiming for victory. We know that the Labour Party have been complacent for 74 years. They've taken the people of Glasgow North East for granted. We know that we are closing ground on them. We know that we've got a chance. In fact, I'll tell you, Glenn, I think we've got a good chance.
But your opponents suggest that perhaps you're taking the voters there for granted. Just clarify for us, where were you born?
Well, I can exclusively reveal this evening, Glenn, that I was born into a family in Denniston, 290 Duke Street. As the Labour Party revealed today...
Where were you born?
Well, as the Labour Party revealed today, the maternity hospital wasn't actually in Denniston, which is a shock revelation that which has been publicly available for all to know and all to see.
Sure, but then, your leaflet, at least one leaflet, talks about you being Denniston born. That's not true, is it?
Well, no, I think anybody who's Denniston born or Denniston born and bred, I think that it's a common phrase used that doesn't necessarily mean that you were born in the house. Because there was no, 73, there was no maternity hospital in Denniston.
But you accept you weren't born there?
Pardon?
You accept you weren't born in Denniston?
I'd use the phrase Denniston born, as most people in Denniston would use the phrase Denniston born if they're from Denniston. And then when I was young, we moved out to Cumbernauld, as you could see in the film there, starring in a Cumbernauld advert, what's it called?
Okay, but just on this, I mean, why then in a previous election leaflet in Falkirk West did it say that you were born and educated in Cumbernauld?
Yeah, well, I think that was a case, well, it was 9 years ago, but I think that was a case, if I remember rightly, of a over-enthusiastic leaflet writer who I think was quickly corrected. Denniston born, not Cumbernauld born.
But you can see why some people would think you were trying to pretend you were something that you're not.
No, I think what we can see is that with 10 days to go, and we went through many of the issues in that film facing the people of Glasgow North East in terms of the challenges for the area and also the potential we want to maximise in the area, and the Labour Party are reduced to running a fairly silly, personalised attack upon the opponent rather than talking about the issues that actually matter to the people of Glasgow North East.
Well, let's talk about some of the current issues at Westminster. Obviously a big row about MPs' expenses. What would your personal pledge on the pay and perks be if you were elected?
My personal pledge is the same as the personal pledge of the SNP group at Westminster, that we adhere to the gold standard when it comes to expenses. That's the Holyrood standard, and we're trying to implement that at Westminster as well.
Would you match, for instance, the pledge of the Conservative candidate in this election not to claim for food, for household bills, for furniture, that sort of thing?
Well, I think at Westminster at the moment you can't claim for food, and the Kelly report that's just come out confirms that is the situation. So no, I wouldn't be claiming for food. I think my role model in all this is the MP for Glasgow East, John Mason, who shocked the Labour Party in the east of the city, as we hope to do so in the north in 10 days' time. He is a man who lives modestly in Glasgow, modestly in London, travels modestly by train up and down from north to south on a weekly basis, and interestingly he was one MP who in recent times was asked to pay by Sir Thomas Legg £0 back to the taxpayer.
Do you think we should still have troops in Afghanistan?
I think if we do have troops in Afghanistan...
Do you think we should?
Yes, I do at the moment, but I think that we have to be clear about why they're there. We need a review of the strategy.
Why are they there, or why should they remain there in your view?
Well, Glenn, I'm as confused probably as you are and the rest of the population.
But you said they should remain.
Well, I think they should remain, yes.
Why?
Well, I think because there is a job to do at present time in terms of tackling terrorism in Afghanistan, but the trouble is, for myself and both for the troops, that's not clearly stated as a raison d'etre by the UK government. We need a review of strategy in Afghanistan.
That's exactly why they say they are there, to keep us safe from terrorism.
Well, I think we've had about 5 or 6 different reasons from the UK government over the past 5 or 6 years as to why they're there.
But you're clear that is why they're there.
Well, I think they're there, but I think the tackling of terrorism doesn't necessarily necessitate a prolonged occupation of Afghanistan. I don't think that's practicable. And also, if we remember back to 2001...
You think they should come home soon?
I think we've got to look towards an exit strategy for the troops. And while they're there, I think we have to equip them properly. And so that's something that the Labour government just haven't done, Glenn.
What about an exit strategy from the postal dispute? Do you support the Royal Mail's use of agency workers?
Well, they say it's in order to fill the Christmas rotas. I think that's slightly implausible and unbelievable. When I speak to postal workers in Glasgow North East, I do get the sense that they are exasperated by their management. They don't want to take strike.
You want an end to the use of agency workers?
I do want an end to the use of agency workers because I think they're effectively being used as strike breakers. And I think when it comes
even if that makes the disruption worse for your potential constituents and others?
I think everybody's saddened by the disruption to the Royal Mail, the potential short-term and possibly long-term damage caused by this strike, but I think that the workers at the Royal Mail have been backed into a corner. I think we all want to see this dispute resolved. It's important that both sides sit down this week and try and sort it out, because the longer these strikes go on, then the more damage that's done to the Royal Mail.
Can you see the moral dimension of your politics bringing you into conflict with your party at any point?
No. In terms of the moral dimension of my politics, and I presume you're referring to the fact that I'm A, Christian and B, Catholic, and I make no apology for that, quite the opposite. On those issues where my conscience is brought to bear upon policy matters, they are issues of conscience, where the SNP is wonderful at respecting the conscience of individual members of Parliament. In our Westminster group we have a spectrum of belief, and that's but we all work together as a team. So in matters of conscience, I'll stick to my conscience, and that's a Christian conscience.
David Kerr, the SNP's candidate in Glasgow North East, thanks very much indeed.